Are you looking to grow revenues, increase profitability, or obtain financing? If so, you came to the right place.
Running a business is all about leadership. How do you become a better leader? Learn from the successful entrepreneurs and business owners how to lead your organization more effectively. That's why we created Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business, to help you succeed with your host, Andrew Frazier, Business Growth Pro and CFO and founder of the Small Business Pro University. Every Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern, we're joined by experienced entrepreneurs and business owners who share their secrets to success via live stream. Also, every Friday morning, we release a new podcast episode. Either way, you will learn about developing your business leadership skills from our roster of highly performing guest experts. Leadership Live is one of the many valuable resources provided through the Small Business Pro University, empowering business owners to learn, profit, and grow. Find out more at sbprou.com.
Okay. All right. Good afternoon or good evening. Welcome to Leadership Live at 8:05. I'm your host, Andrew Frazier. Excited to be here once again with you on Tuesday night. As you know, as a business owner, there's so many things that you need to know that it's impossible to know them all. But that doesn't mean they can hurt you. So it's so important to continually build your knowledge and continually develop your leadership skills. So that's really what this show is all about, is really helping you as an entrepreneur, business owner, be able to lead your organization more effectively by becoming a better leader and becoming more knowledgeable about business. As you may know, I outlined and created the Masterpreneur Journey, which outlines 5 steps for going from startup to scaling a business. And we've been doing a series with Bohinsky where we walk through each of the 5 steps. So, his business has gone through each of the 5 steps, which are started working on the concept of his business, then working in his business, then working on his business, then working on the future of his business, and then working on scaling his business. And generally, less than 2% of all businesses actually make it as far as he's made it. Within 3 years, he's got over 100 employees and is really building an organization. And he's gone through the different steps. But not only is it important that the path, but as a leader, as a business owner, you have to develop as a leader so you can successfully lead your organization through each of the 5 steps. So, the Masterpreneur Evolution outlines how you have to evolve as a leader from being an entrepreneur focused on solving a problem to, starting your business and working as an employee and or supervisor, to growing your business to where you can become a manager and you have employees and supervisors, and then finally moving forward into the executive role where you have managers, and then finally developing your executive team so that you can be a full-fledged CEO. And that's the journey Gene has taken. We've already gone through the first 4 steps. So today we're going to close out this series. But it's a really powerful series. And if you missed any of the episodes, they're still available on YouTube or on LinkedIn. I highly recommend that you check out the replays. But let me invite Gene on now. Hey, Gene, how you doing tonight?
Great. How are you?
I'm excellent. Thanks again for taking the time to join me this evening.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Excellent. And just sharing your journey. This has been 5 shows this year. So officially, you've been the guest who has been on the show more than any other guests.
Wow, that's an honor.
Yeah, and usually people only get one shot. Very few people even get a second shot. So, but it's because of the value that you bring and the experience and knowledge and things that you can share that can help many entrepreneurs and business owners be more successful. So I appreciate that. We've gotten to know each other, work together. So I know firsthand kind of the great things that you're doing and that you've, overcome and created. So, it's great to be able to share that here. So, hopefully most people on, here know you or know of you, but just in case, just take like 2 minutes to kind of walk through a quick background before we get started.
Sure. Gene Bohensky. I'm the CEO of Archer's Contact Solutions. I started my career long ago as an engineer and wound up in technical sales. But I switched a few years after that working for small businesses, which is what I really love, small manufacturing businesses. And I got a real passion for small business. Later, I started a luxury chocolate business and sold it, became a business coach 10 years ago with the Alternative Board. And through the Alternative Board, that's how I got to know my partner in the Philippines, because I hired her to make appointments for me, to set appointments, as many people do. Fell in love with the people and the country, and started a business 3 years ago. We had a lot of experience, a lot of bad experience trying to hire freelancers. We couldn't easily train them, watch them, or manage them. And we realized if we wanted to provide more people to my clients, which I was doing, at first on the side, helping with a person here and a person there. Once we realized we needed to open an office to do this right, where we could train them, manage them, coach them. And that was 3 years ago. So now we're up to almost 130 people. And as you say, we've gone through all the stages of your masterpreneur growth journey. And here today, we're here to talk about the last stage, which is that scaling stage, which is a very interesting stage. There's so many things about that stage to talk about that I never anticipated. And part of that is also the journey of the business owner themselves has to become someone different in that last stage. And there's many surprises that you run into.
Definitely. So, in business, as many times in life, you solve a problem or you overcome a challenge, and guess what you get as a reward? A new one.
Oh,
and,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
and it's usually harder, but it's great to learn and accomplish those challenges. But definitely each stage has a significant degree of difficulty beyond the previous stage. So, it's, important to understand how difficult it is to get where you are. Most businesses never even make it fully to step 3. Then, maybe, very small percent go from 3 to 4. And then a very small percent of the 4s go from 4 to 5 successfully. And you've been able to do all 3 in, you all 5 in less than 3 years. Now, we talked last week is you sort of had a head start because, you already had businesses, so you didn't have as much of a learning curve, and you had things in place that helped you to get this up and running faster. They sort of say, you're most successful in your 3rd business. And I think this is your 3rd business, kind of. So
maybe more, maybe 4.
Maybe more. So, definitely that's key. So, So we're talking about scaling and sort of going from working on the future of your business, developing your growth strategy, to starting to implement it. So, what's the first step in implementing your growth strategy? Or what's the first steps that you took when starting to implement the growth strategy once you developed it?
I would say the first step that I had to really think about, and what really informs the decisions, is the financial aspect of it. It is financing the growth, right? So once you know everything about your business, you know who your customers are, you have your management team, you know how to hire people, right? You know how to get new customers. You know what the cost of doing business is, right? You know all those things. Now, what you need to do is put in motion the actual tactical work of scaling, which is financing the growth. And what does I mean by financing the growth? Well, it usually has to happen before the growth comes. That means, you have to plan for a bigger space where you're going to house people. You've got to plan to buy computers before you get the clients. You have to plan to hire people before you get clients. You have to have a plan to buy air conditioning systems and get the financial aspect in order, right? So that financing is always going to be more challenging than you think, because you think ahead. You say to yourself, okay, I'm going to double my sales. On paper, I should have triple the profit, right? So you think to yourself, well, as I grow, I'll just make more money, right? Um, but that doesn't necessarily happen. A lot of people go broke scaling if the growth happens too quickly, right? So if you don't have any extra money in place, if you don't have money lying around, and you're using your money that you're getting from your clients to finance your growth, that could be a constraint on growth, right? Because your profits have to pay for the expansion, which could be, buying computers and everything else. And then there's really no money left over to pay even yourself. So if you grow too fast, and this is to show, if you grow too fast, you can run out of money, right? So you have to be careful that you pace yourself so that you can actually grow at a rate that you can afford, unless you actually uh, take out more loans, which you can do. You could take out more loans to buy all those things in advance. But if you never really catch up, right, if you never start actually taking the profit and paying off those loans, you could continue to grow and continue to take out loans, and actually continue to grow and never make money, right? Because you're growing faster than what your cash flow allows you to do. So you have to manage that. That's something that you have to really plan to manage and understand it, because you might want to throttle the growth to a rate where you can afford it, right? And make sure that you are, according to whatever plan, a financial plan you have. But really at that point, the biggest part is financing. A lot of people need a CFO to help them with this, if they don't really understand financing themselves. I'm pretty decent. I don't need a CFO at this moment. I have good accounting, so I can understand my finances and make some of those decisions. Because some of the time, what I'm actually spending is on the financial side. Like, what loans am I taking off? And taking out certain loans, lower interest loans to pay off high interest loans, right? To take out a loan to maybe cover some sort of unexpected expense that comes up, or we need to go faster. All of a sudden, we get a huge spurt of people, and we need to buy 30 computers. And all of a sudden, we don't have the $20,000 or $30,000 in extra cash lying around. So you have to buy that on credit card and then pay it off when you do get the cash. So a lot of those times when you're scaling at that point, unless you have a huge amount of money that you have hanging around to finance it. A lot of that is managing that part of it. I know I've gone on, talked a lot, but hope that makes a little sense. Well, maybe Andrew's dropped off with his internet connection.
Yeah,
Oh, you're back.
yeah, back. Sorry, technical difficulties. I had to grab my laptop, but I'm sure you handled it well. Um, so, we're talking about scaling. Um, you mentioned that one of the biggest challenges is financial management, and many people go into scaling unprepared with that. And like you said, that can cause you a lot of strife or even put you out of business.
Yeah, you got to understand. You got to understand the financial aspect of it, and you have to plan for it and understand, how you're going to allocate the funds coming in.
Right.
Right. So, what are you going to pay yourself as the profits grow? Like, obviously, when you're in level 5, hopefully you're making money. I mean, some people scale without making money because they have really different kind of plans, and they have VC backing or there's big money backing where they don't plan to be cash flow positive for many years. I mean, in my case, I could see that. I could see how if somebody had $1 million to rain on us, we could grow much faster, not having to worry about making money for the first 2 or 3 or 400 VAs, right? And only worrying about making money, multiple years down the road. I mean, that's you could do that. In this case, this is being financially backed by me, right? I'm the investor, and I'm the one who is taking out the loans and managing that myself and trying to do that, like most of the listeners, there's you could certainly get a big investor backer and have him or her own half the business and rain down a couple of $1 million, and then you do it without having to really manage all that yourself. But in my case, it's a discipline, because there are some funds. There's now, as the cash flow is improved, we've improved. You got to worry about making sure you have a good credit rating, because your credit rating is connected to your access to get loans. You will need loans, right? So a lot of people are afraid of taking loans, but eventually you will need loans. You will need to take loans out from a bank, and understand financing. I know, Andrew, you know a lot about financing and help a lot of people. I like to say that you should get someone to teach you about financing. And I like to look at this like 6 levels of financing, right? There's the lowest level is a home equity loan. Then there's home equity lines of credit. That's a little bit higher rate than a home equity loan. Then you can go in to try to get a business loan from SBA or a bank, right? And then you can get some other kind of term loans that are like 19 to 22%. I get them through QuickBooks, 19 to 22%, which is better than credit card loans. Credit card loans are 22 to 30%. And then after 30%, you get into hard money loans. That's when you're desperate and you need money fast, and it's super high interest, usually for short term when your credit is shot. Right. So there's many levels of loans and many different ways to get those loans. And at any point in your business journey, you might need to get a loan at an interest rate that is not favorable today. Right. So I've had at some cases, I had to deal with credit card loans. Now I'm restructuring some of those credit card loans. Thankfully, the business is profitable and can easily pay the interest. So we're looking at restructuring those loans. There's a strategy where you can get $50,000 to $80,000 worth of zero interest credit cards that people use for 15 to 18 months. And you can use that to pay off substantial amounts of money and save. I'm looking at saving maybe $8,000 worth of interest by doing that on that strategy. So, there's different strategies, right? I mean, once your business is running, past the $1 million mark, and you're headed towards the month to a monthly monthly yearly revenue of about $2 million. That doesn't sound a lot for scaling, but in my case, for a VA business, that's scaling because we have over 100 clients, and we got to go to 200 clients, and we have a system, and we have a market focus, and all of that. So that's why we are getting there.
Okay. Excellent. So, and as you move up the ladder, things that you may not have done or completed in the previous steps can really come back to hurt you, and especially on the financial management.
Oh yeah, there's definitely things I should have done better.
Yeah. So, like in step 2, you need to get your bookkeeping and financial statements accurate and timely and understand them. Stage 3, you got to optimize your business by analyzing your numbers. Stage 4, you got to develop a strategic growth plan and have financial projections. And stage 5, cash flow and financing are huge. And throughout, you talked about your organization grew to the point where you don't know all your employees,
Right.
You don't know all your customers. You have a leadership team, but you got to trust them. But in the Navy, it was trust but verify. And if you don't have your numbers and financial management, how are you going to verify? So, developing that discipline is so important because, like you said, when you scale, you think that your profits may be going up, but your cash is going down. And that's usually not a temporary thing. That's throughout the whole period of your growth. So you can't set up enough financing in advance in many cases. So, you want to start early, getting everything together because, like they say about banks, they'll give you an umbrella when the sun is shining and take it back away when it starts to rain. So, you need to be prepare yourself. So, so now we've got a interesting question in the chat. First, definitely appreciate everybody tuning in. Appreciate your comments, questions, shout outs. If you can, let me know where you're tuning in from. We usually have people from all over the country here, as well as other countries. So check in, let us know where you're tuning in from. But definitely something that is very relevant to something that's happening is, let's see, at what point should your company start outsourcing? And that's especially relevant because, Gene, you're working on a book about that. And also, our next event, as you know, we have 3 major events a year for entrepreneurs and business owners. And next week is Power Week, when we have our Power Networking event and Power Breakfast. So if you're in the New Jersey area, you definitely want to check us out. So our Power Breakfast is next Friday morning. It's going to be in Kenilworth, New Jersey at the Galloping Hill Golf Course. And actually, Gene is a featured guest speaker, and his topic is delegate or die. So he's going to be talking about how to delegate successfully, and so that so definitely the answer to your question is going to be specifically there. And then if you can't come out during the morning, come out Thursday night, the night before. We always have a great networking event. It's going to be in Montclair, New Jersey at the Sankofa Cafe. Plenty of great people, great food, and good parking. Uh, Even though many times Montclair can be tough to park, this location is not going to be difficult at all to park. So hopefully you can join us. And so, Gene, maybe give a quick answer on when you should start outsourcing.
Well, the truth is, a business owner needs to start outsourcing and delegating as soon as they can, because you need to learn how to do it. It's primarily, I would say, you need to learn how to do it first before you need to do it financially. Probably because if you're already overloaded, it's going to be much harder to start delegating when when you're totally overloaded and you don't even have enough time to train than you do when you do have some time to train. So as soon as you can start um, learning how to work with other people, and what outsourcing really is not just having other people do your work, because that's the easiest part. It's really outsourcing responsibility for parts of your business, where the people that you're outsourcing to take over part of the responsibility for your business. That's the hardest thing for a business owner to do. Many business owners have 10 employees and don't outsource responsibility, right? They only have their employee, everything starts and stops with them. They watch everything, they control the quality of everything, and they never let their employees take ownership or take the roles. In my case, once you're at 130 people, you can't think like that. You need to have people, and your job as a CEO is really to establish the vision and establish the way you want the company to be run. So that means constantly educating them. And unfortunately, what it really means is dealing with problems. The reality is that when things are good, you're not involved. So as the CEO, your job becomes almost exclusively dealing with problems and teaching and coaching your staff to deal with things, negative things that come up. And there will be many things that come up that you never really realize would happen, right? Because everyone is different and there's new challenges every day. And some of the people on your team might not be the right people, right? I mean, when you have 130 people, they can't all be the right people. You're going to have people that are on a scale of, like, average to um to great. So you're going to have to deal with some wrong hires. You're going to have to deal with big mistakes. You're going to have to deal with angry clients, right? Um, that's right. So I see we have another question, if I can read it.
Okay.
Outsourcing is not just a necessity, it's a skill. How do you make your intentions clear, processes and or trust? Well, I would say both. You have to have processes, you have to install processes, you have to trust, you have to do a lot of communication. In my case, since the business is in the Philippines, I do a lot of training videos and expect my team to listen to them and watch them. Um, we do management calls. Um, we do training calls. They're always recorded. We do discovery calls with clients. They're recorded, and we make sure that the good ones are reviewed and saved, so people can be trained on them and they could listen to successful business calls. Right. So I think that it's really important to make sure that your vision for the business, what your business stands for, what you stand for, what you want your people to do, they actually want that from you. They want leadership. People expect leadership and crave it, and want to talk about it and get excited about it because there's not a lot of people who do it well. So without leadership, there is a vacuum. So you have to provide leadership. And a lot of these things you have to do deliberately. So for yourself as a person, you have to think about this very deliberately, what you're going to do as the CEO of the company. What is it that what kind of company do you want to build? What kind of people do you want working there? What kind of processes and procedures do you want in place? Remember, people are going to take the lead from you. You got to make sure that they're doing it the way it should be done. A lot of times, some of the things that we talked about in the previous stages is that you really don't get the scale unless you fully understand your product or service. A lot of people try to scale when it's too early, right? They don't really know their product or service, and they don't really know what they're doing, right? So I mean, by scaling, it means you know what your product is, you know what it costs to provide the service, you know what it costs, and you know the price that you're going to get, right? And you know what kind of profit you're going to get per client. You know all of this in advance. So, and if you have, let's say, I have 100 clients and they're paying, let's say, $3,000 a month, and you're delivering a lead generation sales service, and you want to double your client base, you know that if you double the clients, you're going to be providing the same service. You're going to be getting $3,000 a month. You know that it's going to cost you $1,500 a month to provide that service, which means you have a gross profit of $1,500 a month per client, right? You got to know that napkin math. I always talk about napkin math. You got to know the math. You should know the math as a CEO, certainly in your head. I think, you should have at least calculated it enough on the spreadsheets to know what it costs to do, right? So you got to understand. You got to understand it. You got to understand, okay, this month, I mean, I have live data. This month, I want to know how much gross profit I have, how much profit I have after all the costs. Then I can plan in the next 2-3 months what I'm going to do with that money. I'm going to pay myself. I'm going to pay down some debt. We're going to buy computers. We're going to have a gala, a big party for our 3rd anniversary, right? We planned all that because we know how much money we're going to make, right? And we know the business can afford to do all those things. And so you execute your plans based upon what you know is coming. This is really important forecasting. I mean, the Fortune 500 companies do this all the time, but if you're scaling, you have to know, okay, this year we're going to go from 130 employees to 200 employees. Our revenue to go from X to Y. We're going to be making this amount of gross profit along the way. We know in May we'll have enough money to buy, more computers and air conditioning systems for our new floor and new equipment. We can't do that today, but we'll be able to do it in May if we reach our sales targets. If we don't reach them, we might have to postpone that to June, but we know the money will come in June, so we'll do it then, right? So you kind of have to map out your future when you're scaling, because you're going to need to do all those things, right? You're going to need to know what is it going to cost to put all that together. If you're going to go from 130 to 250 employees, it means a lot. There's a lot of things that means. I got to buy 120 chairs and 120 desks, right?
Right.
And 120 computers and headsets, and we got to train for those people, right? We got to.
So, and when you're scaling, you're dealing with larger numbers. So if you're small, you could be like, okay, we need an extra chair, not a big deal. But I need an extra 50 chairs. That's a real number. And the strategic planning phase, stage 4, is so important because it helps you to prepare for what's happening and plan for it and project it. So, because while you're scaling, things happen so fast that you have to be able to see trends and make decisions early on based on your understanding of where you're trying to go and what it takes to get there. Gene's talking about how he, we talk about, he was like, I need to hire another 20 VAs because I don't need them this month, but I'm going to need them next month. But if I hire them next month, then I won't have them. They won't be ready when I have the customers. So, growing your team strategically, growing your finances, and then also your capacity. Understanding where the capacity bottlenecks are, and when you'll have to make adjustments, and what type of adjustments you're going to have to make to increase that capacity. So there are a lot of key things to manage actively.
I mean, there's some weird things that come along the way. We were in one facility where, we had a certain amount of people in the room, and we all bought desktop computers, right? And the desktop computers all were 300-watt power supplies, right? And so we quickly used up the electrical capacity of the room. So in order to increase, and in fact, we weren't allowed by the building manager to add any more electrical capacity. So we actually had to move to laptops, right? Because the laptops work on 40 watts. So you could put 8 laptops for the energy of one desktop. So we had to do that. Those crazy things, right? One time your bottlenecks changed. One time the bottleneck was the computer wattage, so you wouldn't think, right? Yeah. We could fit another 25 people in the room if they all had laptops, right? So there's another capacity. We had another capacity conundrum because it's very difficult to hire around December because everyone's waiting for their 13-month pay from their other employers. So our conundrum then was we couldn't hire anybody. And we only had a couple of VAs on staff, and we got some clients, and we had to make some not ideal matches with clients. They needed somebody right away, and we made some matches that didn't work out, right? So that was also an issue. Right now we have extra people. In January, February, we hired a whole bunch, like 20, and we now have VAs available again. And we're shuffling them around according to where they're needed. We need another another room. So one of the buildings we're renting out 2 more rooms, and we need to do that. I mean, they're smaller rooms. They're going to hold 30 more VAs. So I mean, this continues on, and then there's other rooms and other floors available. So, it's always changing, and you're dealing with those kind of things. Those are the kind of things that you're managing. You're not really managing the clients anymore. You're not managing the work. Or if you're managing the clients, you're managing problems. So the thing that you realize is that what comes to the top when you're a CEO is you're dealing with problems mostly. You're dealing with problems and challenges. You're not there really for the wins. We put out our first client survey, and we had super good responses from our clients telling us how they love us. But but challenge every day.
Yeah, but you don't feel that on regular days because usually you're dealing with problems. But when you have 100 people, even if 98% of your customers are happy, the 2% that aren't are the ones you're dealing with. So it feels like you got problems everywhere. Even though
it's true, right? And you can and I caught myself doing this. You can actually convince yourself there's a bigger problem than there is, and a lot of CEOs get fooled this way, right? I always remember it's really funny. A CEO goes out to their manager and says, do a survey of our customers and see what color they like our product to be painted. And they came back and they said, okay, we contacted 15, and 14 of them wanted black, and the other one they like our current silver. So the CEO gets a call from one of his buddies, and the buddy tells him, I don't like black. It should be silver. Don't you realize that? And the CEO makes a decision based upon the one person, right? That it's going to stay silver, even though and overriding everybody else. And this is a risk for CEOs because CEOs want to play CEO. You want to play the big shot, and you always feel you need to be the person and know better. But the reality is you might not know what you're doing. And the challenge I also have is that, there's problems and issues that come that you've never had before. And there are also things that you don't know how to do. Right. So you have to make sure you have good advisors and people that can help you, because you're going to be in uncharted waters for yourself. Right.
Definitely.
Because not too many people have run a company with 100 people that they started, right? It's not the same thing as like coming in and running a company with 100 people and taking over from someone else. Actually starting a company and running it past 100 people and then being the CEO of that company, right? You have to really change everything. The way you look at your team, the way you manage your team, the way you treat them. It's because they're doing everything for you.
Yeah.
Right. And you can't get down on them.
So, yeah. And you know, like you made a great point. A lot of times, you feel like you're one of the guys as a CEO, but that's not how people see you. And a lot of times they put you on a pedestal. So you have to be really careful about how you communicate and what you say, because, you might say, hey, it would be great if we did this. But people may take it as we need to stop what we're doing and do this. But that might not have been your intention. So you have to really communicate well, become more consistent and clear about your expectations, and really, become, a disciplined leader, because
That's not easy to do. I mean, I can tell you that I had a pretty rough day today. It was not an easy day on the job. We had a lot of challenges, and at one time I lost my cool. So, I mean, it happens to the best of us, but it happens, right? We can lose our cool.
Right.
We can, because we're pushed to the limit. You can have a string of issues that come, and all of a sudden you.
Okay. All right. I think I lost Gene. So I guess he lost me earlier, and then I just lost him now. So, but I think sort of what we're talking about is as a leader, you have a limited purview of what's going on within your company. And not only that, a lot of times people do not tell you stuff that you may want to know out of fear or concern. So it's really important to try and get as much and the best information you can through analysis and numbers, but also through advisors and leadership, and creating an environment where it's okay to talk about problems or challenges. So definitely that's an important piece of it. One example at a manufacturing company, the owner was like, we need to do a good job. So the company was, the lead time was getting longer than the goal. So, that week he was like, okay, we got to speed up production and get more stuff out. Okay. But then 2 weeks later, there were more quality issues than before. So then he's like, oh, now we got to focus on quality. And what it does is sort of yo-yos people back and forth, as opposed to clearly focusing on, the optimal way to run the business. There's always going to be some quality issues. There's always going to be certain things, but if you jump all over the place, then it's not just you, it's your whole organization that's shifting gears, and a lot of lost productivity, and and things can come, as a result of that within your business.
Yeah, that's right. Sorry that I dropped off like that. That was this weird glitch. Anyway, I mean, like I was saying, you have to make sure that you don't yo-yo your team. You know, you have to create a stable leadership. And in my case, you have to point out there are always teaching moments. Um, so there's always teaching moments for people.
Yep. And just to talk about really what it means to be a CEO, because stage 5 is, really when you have to be a real full-fledged CEO, and what that really means. And a few of the key things is, you have to be more than a person. You're sort of like you have to be a symbol, um, uh, internally and externally, and set the standard, because nobody's going to do more or better than you do. So internally, to with your team, but also externally in the marketplace. And as a CEO, if you've got your business running right, you should probably be spending 70% or more of your time outside of the company, working on things that can grow the company, as opposed to focused within the company, which is a big change from the other levels.
Well, yeah, and some of that requires you to maybe search for other partners. Maybe search for a next level marketing company that can take you to that next level. One of the things that I found is that, there's a lot of people that can help you and they can pitch you stuff, but have they actually had experience working in your industry doing what you've done, doing
Mm-hmm.
what you do? Right. I've hired a lot of marketing agencies that have wasted our time.
Yep.
It's not that they didn't have good ideas. It's not that they weren't good people, but they didn't have the experience. So they were testing whatever they were doing for us for the first time, right? The other thing, to your point, going outside, you also need to be aware of trends and trends changing.
Yep.
Because things can turn on a dime in your industry, and you might be missing something, right? You
Yep.
might be missing things that go on that could be better opportunities for you. And you also have to be the ambassador to your company. You're the public face, so you have to do the larger networking events. You have to be seen. People have to see you, what you stand for. Together we have a chance to write a book together on delegation, delegate or die. You write a book. You write a book about the philosophy of your business and your methods that underpin your business.
Definitely.
And the book is going to help inform your customers, your current clients, and your employees, because they're all going to read it too, right? So you end up doing things on a more, visionary level than a tactical level. than working. You're not calling up customers. You're not doing cold calls.
Well,
You're not actively managing your team, right? They have their own management.
right. Or you shouldn't be. Uh, you
Shouldn't
know,
be.
but so many business owners don't ever really um, evolve into being able to successfully execute that role.
No, it's hard because you have to change everything you're doing. And if
Mhm.
you like what you're doing and if you're good at it, you don't want to change.
Yeah.
And then sometimes something is that I've noticed it with my business coaching clients. I have clients that need to change, that know they need to change, but they're making so much money doing what they're doing, they're not going to change.
Hmm.
So, depending on your own personal vision, you might not need to scale, right? So, or want to scale, and you should also know that that's okay.
Yep.
This guy was taking him two, three, $400,000 a year in profit from his business, and he doesn't really need to scale. He's meeting his financial goals.
Yep.
Um, so a lot of it for me to scale, I needed to scale to meet the financial goals. So and to where I wanted to head. So
So
part of being a CEO is also knowing your own financial goals for the business and yourself, because you're going to need to grow the business to that. And you also have to realize, as a CEO, you're going to bring a team along with you. They always tell you this. You're going to pull up a team with you. They're going to come with you for the ride, right? You're going to make them, you have to want to make them successful too. You want your partners to be successful. You want your staff to be successful. You want your management team to be successful.
yep. So yeah, I mean, you have to grow the structure beneath you, or you can't step up to the next level. And just to give an idea of how challenging it can be to be a CEO, when Apple grew, um, Steve Jobs had to give up the CEO role because the board didn't feel he was ready to do what needed to be done.
Right.
So even the best of us need to learn and develop, and may not be quite ready for the situation you're in, and understanding that you need to get help, or you may need to get a CEO that you quasi work for, which is okay. So it's important. We've got a lot of great questions, a lot of great comments. There's never enough time in the show, but we can't stay here all night. But what we're going to do is, number one, some of these questions are answered in the previous shows as well. So hopefully, now that we've gone through it once, you may want to go through the 5 again, because I think you'll have greater understanding of each stage now that you've been through the whole process, and how one stage impacts the other stages. And definitely before we go, we always like to have the guests share 3 key takeaways. But before we do that, just want to once again just make sure everybody knows that next week we've got the Masterpreneur Breakfast in New Jersey. It's New Jersey premier networking event, and Gene Bohinsky is going to be speaking about Delegate or Die, and he's going to go into depth about building your team and building the right team at the different stages of your small business. So you don't want to miss that, as well as amazing working. And then the night before, we always have our Power Network event, where that's just a networking event the night before. It's going to be in Montclair, New Jersey at Sankofa Cafe. And, if you can't come during the day, come during the evening for that. and hopefully get to see you, because virtual is great, but in person is always the best. So Gene, before we close out, what are 3 things that people should take away from what we talked about tonight?
Well, I think the first one is that when you're going to scale, you're going to have to really look at this from a financial side on affordability and from your planning. If you don't have the financial knowledge and understanding, then get a CFO or a part-time CFO. There's some to help you with that. I think that's the first thing, because you really got to understand the financial aspect of what you're doing to make sure that you can plan properly for that growth. The second thing is that your role is going to change to become that visionary. You are going to inspire, coach, and lead that company according to the way you feel that company needs to be led. And this is very important. That has to permeate through all of your staff. It's got to permeate through that staff, and uh, that's the first job of the CEO, is to inspire and create that vision for the company. Lastly, your role is largely going to be solving problems, a troubleshooter. So you're going to be focused on constantly solving problems. And I've read this before, that a business is only as successful as many problems it's solved, right? You're going to be solving more and bigger problems. And at the same time, you're going to you might be able to make mistakes, or will be able to make mistakes. Now, someone always asked, what is the Elon Musk theory of management? How can he manage so many big companies at once? Well, truth is, his people manage them, and they only bring him in when there's big problems to solve. Right? He's there to cut the bureaucracy and get to the heart of the problem and clear the path for problems to be solved. And that's primarily your role. Is you're going to not just inspire with the vision, but you're going to be the one that everyone's going to look to cut the red tape and to solve problems. And I guess there's even a fourth one that goes along, maybe connected to being a visionary, is you have to be looking further ahead and making sure that your business path and your vision is relevant, right? So you might need that tweaking if there's a big change. Let's say in my business, let's say there's AI coming in, and we need to address the AI role in small business with virtual assistants. We have to pay attention to that and adjust where necessary. Otherwise, we could lose business. That's just an idea. You have to keep ahead of the trends and see what's going on.
Okay, no, I mean, definitely, great takeaways. I think, Gene, when you talk about scaling and financial management and financial planning are so important. And, you usually have to get a financial help and support. But what I'll say is, just because you have a CPA doesn't mean that you have the skills to deliver what's needed for growing. There's a difference between accounting and finance, where accounting is really looking backwards and finance is looking forwards. And, when you're scaling, it's all about planning for the future and making decisions about the future. So if your financial professional doesn't have that skill, you need to know to expect that skill, because a lot of times, people say they can do more than they can do. But it's up to you to know what you expect and know what you need, so that you can make sure that you're paying for and hiring the support you need. I see that all
Right.
too often.
Right.
That you're like, oh, well, I got an accountant, but that doesn't mean the accountant knows how to do everything in accounting and finance. So understanding the skill set, and you may need multiple financial professionals, and that's okay. Um, you
Well,
also
you need
talk.
you need to surround yourself with a lot of professionals from a lot of different ways. You're going to need a good lawyer. You're going to need a good accountant. You're going to need the good marketing people. You're going to need
Yes.
to build build that for yourself, and constantly be ready to interview um, advisors that can help you,
Yeah.
because there's people that can help you. I mean, even at my point, I'm probably going to be looking. I've been I've been interviewing business coaches that have specifically worked with companies like mine with over 1,000 employees,
Hmm.
right? Where the issues that they have and the things that they can help me with, nobody else can. At this point, you need experience with people that already have done it, not just people that sell you a good line and are smart people. It's very important to know the difference
Yeah.
between hiring somebody that's smart and can pitch you and has a good idea and it might work, versus somebody that has the experience of what actually works, right? And has actually done it. Two totally different things. And at this stage, as you get larger, that becomes more critical, to find. And I think that people have to learn how to use a business coach early on in their career, have to learn how to use advisors, and have to learn from people that know better than them. That's also something that goes along with being a, uh, uh, a CEO. A CEO doesn't do things by themselves. They have a team, and they get advice from people that know better than them.
Right. And
And I was the last person to think that I would ever need that. I was one of those arrogant engineers. You study engineering, and everyone thinks they're the smartest person in the room, and they can do things better than everybody else, right? And I went through life, many years in my young life, thinking that, right? And it isn't until you get to this point where you have real experience and have you're at a level where you've really run out of your own experience. You need help. You've never done this before. There's a lot at stake. There's issues that you could try a lot of things, but they could be wrong. And you yourself are not equipped with the experience or understanding to take you there. You need other people. And anybody who's in a top leadership position knows that. That's what happens, right? Because you get to the point where you are the only one there,
yeah, yeah,
right?
and yeah. So I mean, definitely, um, getting the help, but not only just external help. As you grow, once you get past optimizing your business, you should have a leadership team that every manager you have or every executive you have knows more about what they do than you do.
Oh, absolutely.
And it shifts because, early on, for the first three stages, you usually know more about everything in the business than everybody else in the business. But for you to be able to scale, you're going to have a team that's knowledgeable that can help you make better decisions and solve problems without you.
That's right.
And I know you've done that. So and just a couple things. We're going to go a little late because there's so much valuable stuff here. But you know, you talked about being a visionary, inspiring. You're creating a culture within the company, and it's so important because what you want to have happen needs to permeate through the whole company down to the lowest level employee. And you can't tell them directly. So you have to create an environment and a culture around being able to make that happen. So that's a very difficult thing for a lot of people because they don't really understand what a culture needs, and also how to influence a culture, because it's one of those things that you can't create a culture. You can influence it, and hopefully it turns into what you want it to be based on how you influence it. So um
I think my only comment with that is that you have to want it to succeed for the other people.
Hmm.
You have to do this with goodwill. If you don't want to build a company for the benefit of the employees, if you don't have a positive view of the world this way, if you're just only in it for the money, and you're going to be strict about making money, and the people that you hire are just there to make you money, you can't really build a culture that way.
Hmm.
I mean, you can build some kind of culture that way, but it's not really a positive culture. Certainly for a VA business, you need people to be comfortable to give their best to their clients, and you have to create a positive culture where people feel comfortable in expressing themselves, and they have to enjoy working there because otherwise, it doesn't work. I mean, I remember at a manufacturing company where the owners would scream at the employees when they were 2 minutes late from break, and they would sit there and slow walk the work the rest of the day, and it was stupid, right? I mean, like people were just angry at the bosses half the day and did the work half as fast. But the owner got the satisfaction to scream at his employees. So I mean, like there's that kind of that there's that's an extreme difference, but there's a lot of businesses that run that way, right? Um, and whether they are successful or not, some are, some aren't. There's all kinds of places, all kinds of people. For me, that's not who I am. I mean, I can get angry at people, but I want the best for them and want them to succeed, and you have to want that for them.
Yep. And and all those companies, they generally plateau and get stuck somewhere in either level 2, level 3, maybe level 4, but most of them never really fully actualize level 4. So if you're going to scale, that kind of prohibits the successful scaling. And then you said the third one was solving problems, but I just want to give more color on that. You should be solving big problems, not everyday problems.
Yeah. You're going to be solving structural problems,
Right.
like
And
maybe we need to change the way the management is structured.
yeah,
Maybe we need to add another layer of management, or we need to add a position. Those are kind of problems you solve.
and you're solving future problems. You know,
Right.
one big thing about each level is your perspective um, within the organization. Um, and that helps what level you're at. So, as an employee, you're really focused on what do I need to do today? As a supervisor, you're looking at, okay, well, what do we have to do this week to accomplish our weekly goal? As a manager, you're looking at, okay, what do we need to do next month to improve and from last month. As an executive, you're looking quarter to quarter, like what were our results this quarter and how are we going to change things for next quarter and future quarters. And when you're the CEO, you're really looking at where are we going next year. You're looking a year out.
Oh
uh,
yeah, yeah.
so that determines more than anything else which of the 5 levels you're really at. you know
And also where at the end point of your company, like I want to reach 1,000 people, right?
yep.
And I know other people that have done that in this space,
Yep.
and so that kind of drives my thinking. It drives. So what are we going to need to ultimately do to get to 1,000 people? What does
Yep.
that look like? That really, I mean, I'm definitely not going to know any of the employees or clients, right?
Right.
I mean,
But
maybe you can know. I think it's 30 to 50 is like the theoretical limit for what a person can actually deal with on
mhm,
that kind of level. But 1,000, you don't remember everybody.
Definitely.
You know?
So yeah, I mean, I think, we could go on and on and on, but I think we really hit a lot of the key points. And definitely appreciate you joining me once again tonight. Look forward to having you as a featured speaker at the Masterpreneur Breakfast next week.
Me too.
And really excited about, your publishing your book we're going to publish it for you, but writing, a really great book that is going to be extremely valuable on how to effectively delegate and lead and grow and manage a successful team to move your organization forward. So thanks again, Gene. Anything you want to share before we close out?
No, I mean, I think anybody out there, I just want to say again that it all starts with learning how to delegate. It starts with hiring your first person and letting them take the reins.
Yeah.
So it's something that you got to learn how to do.
Definitely.
It's a key skill.
Definitely. And that's what Gene's book is all about. So it's going to be out, in the next month or two. So, definitely something worth checking out. So, all right, Gene, well, hang in there for a minute. Let me just close things out. So, as we're closing out, each week we have a great guest. Next week, I'm really excited. We've got Todd coming in, and he's going to talk about accessing private equity for your business. A lot of times people want to get equity investments in their business, but don't really know how or if their business is investable. So we're going to talk about, one, what do private equity, equity investors, what do they look for in a business? And, how do they value a business? And as well as, who's a prime category or, a profile that makes sense. And, if you were to get private equity, is it really the solution that you want? Because what does that mean for you and your business? Because your business is going to be very different once you have that type of investor. So really looking forward to having him on as a guest. And I'm sure he'll be sharing valuable financial and financing insights. So hopefully you can join us next week for that. Definitely, we got the Power Breakfast next Friday. We got the Power Network event next Thursday night. And always remember, at the end of the day, the more that you know, the faster or more successfully your business is going to grow.
Thank you for listening to Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Leadership Live is one of the many valuable resources provided through the Small Business Pro University, empowering business owners to learn, profit, and grow. Find out more at sbpro.u.com.